A warm welcome from a very sunny South Africa this afternoon, where we are at Mantis Founders Lodge in the Eastern Cape. And welcome to Live at the Watering Hole, and let's see what we have this afternoon. Already a great start. Looks like 4 basking rhinos. We've got a little bit of a startle by one rolling. Welcome again to all our viewers. Sorry about that, I had a bit of a audio issue, but what a beautiful start to the afternoon here at Mantis Founders Lodge in the Eastern Cape with 4 relaxed white rhino. Now, I'm Jaapie Potgieter and I'm going to be your host this afternoon. And with a good start like this here on the second day of 2025, I'm sure we're in for a great time. Now have a look. We got quite a good view here. I can see some of these rhino have horns. And the amazing thing is that this little one in front on the right that's just lifted his head, he looks like he's still got both his horns. Very, very good to see in a time like this where these animals face a big onslaught from poachers. It's very, very good to see that there are animals with horns. It means that there's a very good protection in this reserve, and it's good to see them in their natural state. Alright, I just want to reintroduce myself, make sure that our viewers know, but it's Jaapie Potgieter and I'll be your host this afternoon. And then I would also like to remind our viewers that this is a live and interactive show, and you can send through all your questions, your comments. You can either join us on the app. You just need to register, or you can send, there we go, send your questions to wildearth.tv/questions, or you can scan the QR code on the bottom right of the screen. And of course you can also join us on X, or formerly known as Twitter. And of course also on YouTube. You can join us at the chat at FC, and then also send questions and comments. Let me know what you would like to chat about, if you have any questions, and of course I'll try my best to answer them. Catherine, you're saying what a great start this afternoon. Indeed it is. And just have a look at how relaxed these guys are. You can see they are thoroughly enjoying the sunlight. What do we have here? That looks like, I am not even sure what that is. It does look like a juvenile of something. Possibly one of the blacksmith lapwings. This is quite interesting. It looks like this little bird still got down feathers, and if I'm not mistaken, it is a blacksmith lapwing, a young one, a very young one actually. And what an amazing little bird to see. Just exploring the water's edge here at Founder's Lodge. It looks like there's some big tracks that's been made in the muddy section there, and very, very likely made by those rhinos earlier. Although I didn't see any mud on them there, it is very, very possible that they might have been at the mud way earlier. Maybe they just had a drink this time around and found the shade to be sufficient. It doesn't look excruciatingly hot in the Eastern Cape this afternoon. You can see a bit of a breeze blowing there in the background. Just have a look, all the action from animals coming down always leaves the depressions in the mud. It also leaves insects and little creatures that will provide these birds with whatever they can find. Just have a look at that beautiful view. There we go. There's an adult blacksmith lapwing. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that is a juvenile lapwing. That would be my guess, just because I know I usually see these guys around. And to be honest, would have to have quite a good look at that bird from up close to be sure. But have a look at bird standing out proud up on the... Oh! Well, from one amazing start to another amazing view. Just have a look at this. Looks like a bunch of elephants. Quite a few. At a quick scan, it looks like they are mostly elephant bulls, but there are more at the back, behind the big trees. And looks like there is a herd around. So have a look. Two younger bulls get pushed off from the water inlet so that the bigger bull can make his way and have a drink. So he obviously had an urgent thirst. Penelope Kenyon, you're saying hello to Wild Earth and to me and all the waterholers, and you're saying that we must enjoy. Thank you so much. I'm sure we will, and hello to you too. And hello to Tembi, of course. Joan Mello, happy Thursday, Wild Earth, and to me. Thank you so much, Joan. Same to you. Happy Thursday. Happy elephant viewing. Happy rhino viewing. That was quite special. Those rhinos looked quite relaxed. Completely different atmosphere out in the sun, in the shade, where these elephants are in a rather overcast northern KwaZulu-Natal. But I'm sure it's quite warm there today. Just have a look. These elephants always go about their own business, each to his own. You can see some well-known characters. I can see the elephant with a floppy ear there at the back, slightly smaller than the rest. With each to his own, they all know their place. Sometimes you'll find the ones with the slightly stronger bonds are standing closer to each other. Now, that elephant with the ear, I can't help but wonder if maybe that elephant didn't have a injury due to the fact that the others might have tried to establish a hierarchical order. And maybe from a bit of push and a bit of excessive play, maybe that elephant injured its ear. It's difficult to say. It might have also been a long time injury, something that happened much earlier on. And have a look. We can see there, you see that elephant with the floppy ear just took a turn to its left, moved away as the other elephant bull approached. Quite an interesting dynamic that we're witnessing here, something that I always tend to look for is the different personalities of these animals, and they do have, elephants being some of the higher order of animals in terms of its intelligence. And I'm sure everybody is aware of stories or has heard of the intelligence of an elephant. And within their social structures, there's very, very complex dynamics and relationships that are constantly built and worked on, maintained. And when there's a lot of elephant bulls together at one place, even though they might know each other, we do know that there are those that clearly know their place. And when it comes to drinking, we saw this big bull currently drinking from the outlet, pushed the younger two off to move in, and at the back we can see the larger bulls standing in the shady spots to dust themselves. And that one with the floppy ear is looking like he's feeling rather sorry for himself. However, on closer inspection I can see he's quite relaxed. Maybe he's just minding his own business and doesn't want any unwanted attention, because that's also something that happens when you have these larger gatherings. You find that these elephants sometimes can become a nuisance to each other. Just have a look. The very rhythmic motion of the ears of the elephants, all flapping. In fact, it's quite a soothing, quite a relaxing atmosphere here. And then just resting, enduring the heat, essentially. We can see shifts in the animal's legs that they stand on every now and again. In a relaxed position, they sometimes find that all they do is they do just shift around the weight. Ooh, and at the back left there's an elephant having a very good scratch on the belly. It was actually just trying to get over that tree, looks like a fallen tree trunk, but it had a very good scratch to the belly, and of course it is having also enjoying the scratch on the way over. Now it's stopping to scratch the back end, and let's see, it's coming down rather quickly. Alright, looks like it's just moving past. Now, judging from that elephant, and I'm just going here on the general shape and size, it looks like it might be a female. And She does looks like she's got a bit of a more angular head, and I can see another younger one following there from the area that she came on. Now it is quite interesting if you do have the fortunate chance to actually be able to look at elephants quite often, then you realize that there are certain features that you can quite easily tell the difference between male or female, but there are also chances and certain instances where it's not always that clear, especially at a distance. But from what these elephants we can see now under the tree here are younger bulls. And they clearly occupy the area around the main watering hole in the shade. Much different from a behavioral point of view. The herd seems to be moving about on the edges, feeding. Even though herds will also stand together and rest, they often position themselves differently and more closely with the little ones. The bulls kind of have this loose aggregation, separated in little spots all around. Let's see, Spasyankov, you are asking that if there's any chance that there would be nyala or waterbuck that might be here today. Saying it's great to see the impala and the elephants. I thought, if I'm not mistaken, I thought earlier, just as we put eyes onto this watering hole, I thought I saw some nyala standing there, but I might have mistaken. Maybe it was the impala. I think chances are likely that nyala might be around. The waterbuck, on the other hand, I know we have seen some waterbuck here in the past, but funnily enough, not as much as you would expect. Waterbuck, and as the name suggests, often found around water. Got a little bit of a higher water requirement than most of the other antelope. And at one point throughout South Africa used to be quite numerous. Dark Main Lover, you are saying good afternoon to me, and you are saying thank you for hosting live at the watering hole. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too, Dark Main Lover. Very, very happy that you can join us. There we go. Spaz, I hope that clarifies it. There we have the impala for sure, not a nyala. So you were very, very correct. I'm pretty sure that there might be some nyala around, at least some of the females with the young. They wouldn't be too far from here. Rosie Adams, good morning to you too, and a happy new year. May it be a blessed year indeed. Oof, and have a look. I can see that termite mound next to those impalas looks like it's got some new activity on it. You could see some difference in the color of the mud plastered up on the side, so it looks like it's wet, newly used mud. So the termites have certainly been a little bit active there. Maybe now that we've had more rain across the region, we started seeing better termite action. In fact, If I'm not mistaken, it looks like it's raining right now. You can see the animals are just out. They don't mind it too much. There we can see clearly, you can see the lighter pale color of the older build, and you can see the fresher new build where the termites have reoccupied or just shown more surface activity, so they plaster up all the old holes. And there we have a baby impala following its mother quite close by. Rosie Adams, you are also saying you can't wait to be back in the South African heat and the winter is too cold there. Sorry, that is from Catherine. Catherine, apologies. But yeah, I hope you get to come back to South Africa soon. We do have the dry, more bearable winter heat, and then we do have the almost unbearable summer heat in some regards. But I do like both seasons of the year. And then, of course, there's also a question from Animal Lover regarding that termite mound. Can excessive rain break down a termite mound? That is a good question, Animal Lover. I would say yes and no. I think on its own, the termites do tend to build it very strong, very sturdy. But it certainly gets very, very wet, and especially with newly built sections, sometimes what happens is that they do wash away and dissolve a little bit because of the severe wetness that they get infused with. But at the same time, I do know that they do break down from animals stepping over them and moving up on them. Find that animals, for all whatever reasons, sometimes they might even eat some of the soil, but they also move about on it. There's some highly nutritious grasses growing on termite mounds. So you found large animals sometimes move across it, feed across it. And you sometimes have the elephant come, they might use it, they might lay up against it, and in that case they break those termite mounds down and ride it down. And often you can see the signs afterwards and the great big mess that they've made, where the termites have just started or tried to maintain it. Rosie Adams, you're saying yay for the fresh little raindrops. Indeed, yay. I think we definitely need it. And yes, of course, fingers crossed for more. We are very much hoping that we will get more. Slow, steady rain over a long period is very welcome. Slowly soaking into the soil, especially in the areas that's been so barren and dry for such a long time. But I think what we're going to do is, I heard we've got Founders back, so we're going to head back to Founders and check in on those rhinos. Here we go. We got some activity. Looks like they're up. And a little bit of movement, even though they're slowly getting mobile, just standing around. I can see the bigger rhino standing up. Certainly had at least one horn trimming in the past. It's amazing how quickly it can grow back. But nice to see them clumping together. And just have a look. They are carefully placing themselves in the shade. Nice little tree to rub on. There we can see one's kind of like casually leaning over and rubbing himself there. And there's one rolling. You can see the little one is still enjoying laying down in the sunlight. A little bit more hesitant to get up. It looks like there's a strong breeze going there from the branches. You can see tracks all up and down this reddish soil in front. Maybe that's... And every now and again I see the dust as the animals move, but maybe that's why these rhinos are moving about a little bit more every time there's a gush of wind coming through. And just have a look at the ears. The radars are out, listening for any sounds that it can pick up. So it seems like the breeze has prompted those two at the back to stand up. Grace, you're saying that it's very, very nice to see these rhinos. Indeed it is. I thoroughly enjoy watching rhinos. Have a look. There's a bit of a yawn from that young one. A yawn and a stretch. Bit of a chewing of the lip. While it was laying down in the dust there, was probably gathering some of the dust in its mouth from the wind. You can see the big one is still laying down, not too bothered. But while these rhinos are still relaxing, some of them, we're going to head to Olifants and see what's happening along the river there. And how amazing is this? From one giant horned pachyderm to 4 other horned pachyderms. It's literally like a swap. 4 rhinos for 4 hippopotamus. This is quite special. Not something that you usually see during the daytime. Judging from the fact that the 2 young ones are with 2 larger hippos, I'd say it's safe to say that these are 2 mothers with their calves. The one in front seems a little bit younger. And of course this rain has brought some very welcome grass growth. And I can see their skin shimmering in the heat. It's certainly overcast enough for these hippos to move out of the water and onto the banks to feed, but this is spectacular. So, Jilly, you are asking how to tell the difference between a black and a white rhino. Well, so at a distance, their colors are very similar, and they have the same gray folded skin. That's also similar to the elephant. But generally their skin will take on the hue of the soil. But there is no difference in color between the 2, so the way we tell the difference is we look at the size and shape. The black rhino's got more of a saddleback, it's smaller in stature and size, it holds its head up high. You can see these hippos have got big bulky necks and big heads with big flat lips, designed to perfectly grab the grass as they are doing now. Just mowing through it, chomping, essentially using those lips to pull off the grass. So the white rhino is very, very similar. It's got a flat, square shaped nose and muzzle. It's all front part of the face, and the lips are squared, hence the other name squared lip rhinoceros, and that's because their diet is predominantly grass. They are a grazer, so their head's usually lower, longer, designed for feeding, where the black rhino feeds on a whole bunch of different trees and plants. Head is usually smaller, held up higher, it moves in denser vegetation, and it also browses on the leaves of trees, and it's got a prehensile lip that aids it with that, and that's hooked. So that's why the other name for the black rhino is the hook-lipped rhinoceros. Dark mane lover, you saying you love seeing hippos out of the water, and that makes you able to see their true size. Indeed, it is quite interesting. It is quite a funny looking creature when you see it out. They're quite agile for such a bulky shape. Oop, I think a bird gave them a bit of a scare there. Yep. Oh no. Look at that hippo running straight to the water. Okay, there we go. Got his footing just to stop and have a good look around. I think they were taken a little bit by surprise there. But that's what happens. That's what they do. And that is their point of safety. Straight back into the water. So they certainly feel innately safe in the water. You can see it's quite a full deep Olifants River here. Nice strong current going, but because of that very reason we don't see them much during the daytime, so that was quite special. Rosie Adams, you were saying that you just love seeing the mothers and the babies of all species. It is very special indeed. And over there especially, we had those 2 mothers and 2 babies. So double the pleasure. And Spazzy Yankov, you were saying it's a rare sighting, and hippos do usually grey at night. You are very correct in saying so. They often wait right up until after the sunset, and then they will leave the water and go about their business. And they can travel quite a bit during the night, so once the rain season is there, you find that they move from the larger watering holes that still have water, and they spread out across a region. Of course, they prefer areas where there's flowing water, where they have access to regular water and they don't have to travel as far for food. And that's exactly what this river provides us. Great grazing all along the banks. You can see there's lots of green banks currently after the rains, and indeed a very different scene from what we saw a month or 2 back with the elephants coming down into the water. The river's very high currently. This is very good to see. George, you're asking if the baby rhino is a newborn. I'm assuming you were talking about the rhinos we saw at Founders Camp earlier. And I don't think so. It looks like it's already quite a bit older. I'd say that that little rhino is probably already close to about 2 years old. From the chance I got to see it. But that would be a guess from my... That would be a guess at best for me. And Jilly, you're asking if hippos are faster on land or in the water. Indeed, hippos are quite fast in both. They move extremely fast in water. They're quite agile, they're quite rather buoyant. They don't swim, they kind of halfway float, but they kind of move on the bottom, and that's exactly what we're seeing there. You can see that hippo's dipping down. That's because it needs to go to the bottom and push itself forward with its legs, its short, sturdy legs. Just have a look at that. What a magnificent sight. A full Olifants River coming down in all its might. Indeed, an extremely important resource to this region, for the animals, of course, used to be for people as well. But this is a beautiful sight, a massive river. And seeing that hippo go across it and look so small to the river in its entirety is quite special. And Animal Lover was asking if hippos swim constantly or do they float. So I guess this goes with Jilly's question that I tried to answer earlier, but they have some buoyancy. They don't float fully, they do go down to the bottom, so they kind of maneuver across the river by hopping along the bottom, but they have enough buoyancy to rise up to the surface every now and again and move like that. And then Dark Main Lover, you saying you saw that the hippos got a fright, but you're also saying that you wouldn't think big rhinos would be scared most of the times, and other animals would be scared of them. That's quite an interesting comment, because that is that would be a logical conclusion to make. But it is quite interesting. Rhinos tend to be quite nervous creatures, especially white rhino and black rhino even more so. But black rhino can be quite aggressive at points and very curious, so they might get an initial fright and decide to come back. But generally, when they get a fright, they turn tail and they run, and white rhino often do that and not try to come back. What a spectacular sight. Just look at the sight of those very, very large, what looks like sycamore figs growing on the banks there, providing much needed shade with their dense canopies, thick, big leaves. And then of course they got that yellowish bark to them. The tree only really grows near the banks of the big rivers. Very special to see. You can see the banks up and down, riddled with little game paths, all the animals moving past. But what a spectacular sight. And what a nice little view into those 4 hippos' lives. But I think let's move on from the olifants for now, from the very full olifants. Let's head over to Juma and see what's happening there. Oh wow, quite unexpected, but very welcome. A water monitor. or as it's also known, a leguan, a water leguan, or likkerbaan as we pronounce it in Afrikaans. And this looks like quite a big one, well covered in the water. At least that would be my guess. I would have to have a good look at it as it moves out, but what a great spot. Look at that snake like, ooh, look at those very, very long, sharp claws. Very resourceful and extremely smart reptile this. You can see the long snake-like tongue coming out there. It's grabbing whatever chemical traces it can pick up from the air. But it looks like a good watering session. You can see the head still up, always vigilant. These creatures are extremely vigilant. You often don't even see them near the water's edge. But once you approach, you just have them run into the water. And have a look, he's covering himself completely, making sure that he's getting wet. They're a lot of fun to watch, especially when they're moving about. Always looking for something. I'm not sure what it's doing. It looks like it's having a good scratch there. Now this is quite a spectacular sighting. I'm wondering what it's doing. I know they do shed their skin, and when they do, we can see, have a look now, we're getting a good view of its body. But it looks like it's, for some reason, it's rubbing its neck. Sometimes they also do that with injuries. We can see the long tail, and this is one of the differences between this water monitor and the rock monitor. Is the tail that's a little bit, it's got quite a thin ridge at the top, a prominent ridge, and that's to aid it in swimming. And they're very, very agile swimmers, very capable swimmers. Both of them swim quite well, but the water monitor, of course, is a little bit better adapted to life in the water, hence the name water monitor, where the rock monitor tends to spend its time away. So PB and Jan, there's two questions from you. First, you were asking, are there other types of fish in the water besides catfish? Yes, indeed there are. There are quite a few species of fish throughout the Kruger Park, throughout the Olifants River. There's a number of species recorded, and the catfish, of course, is often a species that's found quite commonly in the man-made watering holes, although they are in the water as well. There is definitely a whole bunch of other fish. For instance, tilapia, and we find yellowfish, also good fish to try and catch. Just have a look up there over the landscape of Djuma. I can see a few dead trees scattered around, but certainly a lot greener than it used to be. But to get back to PB and J's question about this fish species, yes, there are quite a few different fish species. Some others, there's different catfish as well. There's sharp-toothed catfish, or the barbel as it's commonly known. There's blunt-toothed. In some rivers further north you get tigerfish. You get the Mozambican tilapia, red-breasted tilapia, and then of course something quite odd, a lungfish. And then much smaller little ones called killifish. These fish are small little fish that tends to stay in the permanent pan systems in some areas. Now, I'm not sure of the exact amount of fish that's recorded in the Kruger Park's water systems, and I'm sure it keeps getting added to. In some cases, occasionally invasive species make their way in, but I think one of the last estimates that I saw was about 49, 50 odd species. If I'm not mistaken. And then PB and Jam, your other question is, how big do the water monitor become? Now, it is quite a large lizard. It's the second largest lizard in Africa, after the crocodile, that is, of course, or the crocodile species in South Africa. Only the one crocodile species. And yeah, they can get quite big. They also go by another name called the Nile monitor, and they can go like around about 1.5 meters. That would be including the tail, of course, which is very, very large for such a lizard. That would also be an extremely big one. Interesting to see these cone ducks, or knobbled ducks as they're also known now. You can see the female in the back and the male in front. Very beautiful bird, this. Very odd looking bird, that's for sure. Also a bird that you don't normally see during the dry season, and then as soon as the rains come and the puddles full and the dams full, they move in. And now of course there's a lot for them to feed on here on the outskirts of this dam. And Spasi Yankov, you asked about some information regarding the Olifants River, or the fish that inhabit the Olifants River. Sure, there is a lot of fish that inhabit the Olifants River. I think I might have answered or named some of them earlier with PB and Jam's question. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what all the species are that's been listed Olifants River, but I'm sure that there would be records within the Kruger Park of what has been noted in the Olifants River in the past. Wetland animals is obviously a lot of different bird species, and hippos, crocodiles, all the usual water customers. But I think the river must have been quite impressive back in the day, especially when it would have flooded its banks regularly. Now, a lot of the rivers in this region, even though they might have been a little bit more perennial than they are now, they were still quite dry during the dry season, and of course they had periods where they were almost completely dry, and in some years they were. Some of them went dry completely during dry season, and then others, of course, with the building of dams and water consumption for human use outside of the Kruger Park area or outside of protected areas, of course, that affected the amount of water that comes down, so they became gradually dry and seasonal rivers, only active in the wet season if there is a good amount of rain. And then also the Olifants River, it starts near a small town of Bethel in Mpumalanga. So it does flow throughout Mpumalanga into Limpopo and then straight through, and it links up with there's a number of smaller tributaries that come into the Olifants, but then the Olifants link up with the big river, the Limpopo River, in Mozambique, and eventually from there it flows into the ocean as the Limpopo River. And the mouth there is at Shai Shai, just north of Maputo. Well, that's some basic information on the Olifants, but quite a fascinating river system, very important river system to the general area. But yeah, we've had some good bird action here, interesting questions as far, but I think we're going to move on from the Sabi Sands and head over to Tembe again. And here we've got a very busy scene. We've got a herd that's come down to the water's edge. And just look at the size of the tusks of that young elephant cow. That's quite spectacular. I can't help but be amazed by the tusks of the elephants here at Tembe. What is she doing now? It looks like she's scraping the tip of the trunk. Maybe she's loosening up some of that top soil there. the rest of them certainly trying to utilize that water inlet. It's been very popular over the last few days since it's been exposed. Not sure for how long it's been exposed, but you can see all of the elephants, each one busy with his own. That one scratching his back legs, other one going for a good scratch up against a tree there. Nothing like a big tree with rough bark to help you scratch. You can see the one in front's got some dry dust on the face. What a spectacular scene. Now, I certainly haven't had the privilege of seeing too many elephant herds around the water here. And I always enjoy watching a herd of elephants. It's always nice to see the interaction between the different members. And there's certainly been quite a bit of herd activity in the water, or in and around this watering hole at Tembe lately. And good to see that they've come back from wherever they were during their break at the end of the drier season, when it was mostly the males hanging around here. And also funny to notice now that most of the bulls have moved off. And I'm sure they wouldn't have gone too far, but just out of sight, so it gives the herd a chance to come in and have a much needed drink. From what I can see, it looks like the rain has stopped. It's always interesting to watch how you have those that just patiently wait nearby, patiently standing near the older females. And then you have those that's a little bit more adventurous. I see that elephant on the left side of the tree has certainly got an itch there on the foot. It was scratching that back foot earlier with its other one as well, making sure to get that scratch. But now that the elephants have moved away from the water inlet, I can see that the elephant in the back looks like quite a big elephant bull. Just had a glance of some very big tusks, and it looks like the herd starting to move along. You can see one or two might stop past that tree to have a good scratch as well. usually once the elephants move off, you start to see some of the other animals move in. I can see the impalas have been around for sure, but I saw there looked like some nyala coming down at the back earlier on. And I can't help but watch in admiration how quickly an elephant, even though it looks like it's moving slow motion, can cover that distance. And when they move, they move. When it's time to go, they go. PB and Jam, it's my pleasure. I really hope that the information was helpful indeed. Like I say, I do always enjoy the questions and the comments. It helps me learn. A lot of the stuff that I don't know, I do go and research. And there are often things that I don't know. Even those things that I do know, I like to reconfirm, so to say. But also just to read up about again, you might always learn something new. Just have a look at that big elephant gradually dragging the tip of his trunk along the edge of the ear. I always find that amazing, like that attention to fine detail and the dexterity of that tip of the trunk. Carefully maneuvering along the tip of the ear, removing whatever might be irritating to the elephant. Just have a look at how beautiful it is here, Tembi. You can see there's been a lot of animal movement through here. The holes are dug deeper. Some areas where the grass have been, the sand have been opened up by hoof action. There's an Inyala coming down there. You can see it's just having a stop and a careful look about. Nice big male Inyala. Just to ensure that the coast is clear. One of the questions I saw I missed earlier, it was fed through to me, was from Darkmane Lover, asking what the difference between a Nile and a water monitor is. So it's quite an interesting question, because a water monitor is essentially a Nile monitor in Africa and in southern Africa, and that's only because it was named after the big river in Africa, the Nile River, due to its prominence along the banks of the Nile. And I am not too sure, but it might be in relation to the fact that it was probably described from that region by one of the naturalists back in the day. But essentially it is a water monitor, and that is just due to habit. The water monitor is a lot more prone to be found near the water rather than the other one, which is the rock monitor. And the rock monitor, more commonly known as the Leguan, tends to be a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller. The face looks slightly different in the coloration, but essentially the same creature. They just tend to move all over and further away from the water's edge. The impalas have gradually made their way down to the water now, with the absence of most of the elephants. But it seems like it's quite quiet around the Tembe watering hole. Big elephant moving over to the dustpan. So I think let's go look and see what's happening in Kenya at Lintore. Baboons. Baboons galore, baboons magic. Always funny to watch. And have a look. Bigger ones bullying the smaller ones. And then the small ones taking the mickey out of the bigger ones. And every now and again a big one coming in, making all of the others move off. And even though they all live together and play together, it's definitely a hierarchy. And some that seem way more serious than others. Some up and down the tree. Nice big male baboon there. You can just see that proud stature. Thick neck, shoulders. Carefully eyeing out those up in the tree. You can see his size, difference in size compared to the others. Now these baboons, olive baboons. There's a yawn. Oh, I thought that big male was going to yawn. It's often also a warning sign to insubordinate males, and also just to show off. Those big canines that they hide behind those long lips. But what amazing creatures. Very agile. All different kinds of personalities within the troop. The troop, that's the collective noun for the group of baboons. And As I've seen before, this is quite a healthy troop and size. And what better place to hang out and have a relaxing day than around the watering hole? I can see there's a lot of debris, and I'm assuming it's flowers from the acacias over the water. Ooh. Now an even bigger baboon has stepped into the picture. So that guy has stood up and moved a little bit, very casually. Quite funny, didn't want to draw attention to the fact that maybe he is a little bit subordinate to the other big one that came in. Or maybe he's just moving closer to the tree where the little ones are. But that pose, sitting like that with the arms draped over the knees, that's a classical baboon pose, quite a funny pose. And in that very pose you see them go through all kinds of states. Rosie Adams, you're saying some very big males, and yes indeed there are. Well, there were at least those two. I've seen some more in the past. Well, you can see there, it looks like a male and female standing next to each other there, and they all have their entourages with it. That female looks in heat, so that's possibly why that male is so close to her. This is also when tensions rise, when there's a lot of big males in close proximity. Have a look, there's quite a few of them up in the tree, always a good spot for the scouts. And yesterday afternoon we had a bird of prey up in the tree, and then the baboons came and chased it off, the African hawk eagle. Now these olive baboons look extremely stocky due to their long fur. It looked almost like that baboon saluted the other one, but he was stopping to have a look. It looked like another female in heat, and then realized no, but he is following one. It's quite fun to watch them move about on the edge of the watering hole here. Every now and again one gets drawn in by that patch of shade. Like this one. Probably a younger male. By no means small. But male baboons coming in from other groups or troops, they generally do try and make themselves useful to the troops that they move into by being scouts, by looking after the young ones, forming bonds that way, and eventually also kind of wiggling their way into the command hierarchy. And eventually maybe even become a challenger. Victor, you are saying that you love how similar they are to humans. In a big way they are. I guess we can relate to them and a lot, besides the fact that they are also primates. I think the similarities in their social structures can be comically relatable, certainly in quite a funny way. I find them to be quite funny at how they where we have a single wildebeest and some Egyptian geese. What a proud wildebeest indeed. What a brilliant patch. You can see it's invigorated with a green life after the rains. So indeed, this guy can be quite proud of himself. I'm sure he's also very protective. Look at the sun coming out there. Looks like a gap in the cloud. Quite a dramatic scene, even though it's only a wildebeest. See what looks like an egret of some sorts. Looks like a well-worn, battle-tested wildebeest, and I'm sure when the time comes, this brilliant patch will be protected very well. But then, of course, the thing that's staring me right in the face, and I don't comment, is the amount of water. That is spectacular. There's certainly been quite a change here. Nice big wildebeest pool. Have a look at the size of this watering hole. This is astonishing. I didn't even realize that it could get this big. But it makes sense now as to why it survived throughout the dry season in such a very, very arid area. But it is beautiful indeed. Look at the green everywhere, some white flowers here and there. I'm sure the crocodiles, wherever they might be, are very, very thankful. Valerie, you're saying that there's so much water, it looks like a different place altogether. Indeed, it does. It doesn't even look like the arid northwest of South Africa. It looks somewhere extremely green and fertile. Well, that's a lot of water. Must have had quite a bit of rain in this region. You can see that single rock that used to be used as a rubbing post is still out. And now only right on the water's edge. It used to be considerable distance away. Just look at that all over. And that thorn tree that miraculously just survived the dry season used to be quite a popular spot, especially for the elephants to stop by. You can see a little cloud there beautifully lighting up the back end of this clearing, but I don't see too much else other than the birds. And what is that? A little bit forward, I thought Now there's some white-faced whistling ducks. Good to see that some of them stuck around. A well-known visitor to this area, or visitor, resident. You can see they're just tidying up the feathers, a good scratch there on the head. Very beautiful bird. Striking colors. And I love watching them when they come flying in as a group into the water with their well-known distinguishing call. It sounds like a quick whistle, 2 quick whistles. Hence the full common name, the white-faced whistling duck. Oh, you can see just puffing and stretching the feathers there. See quite a bit of dragonflies flying around. It looks rather cool there. Maybe that might be why one duck's got one leg pulled up into the feathers. They look like they are actually just recovering after a rainy bout. It looks very wet here at Tau. And Sandy Franklin, you are saying that number one, you love Tau, and I can see why. I also love Tau. I think we've had some great sightings here. But you're saying that it looks so different than what it did a month ago. Indeed, it does. It definitely does. Last time I saw Tau, it wasn't anything nearly the same as what we're seeing now. It looked completely different. It was starting to green up, but not nearly the same amount of water. And then, thank you, Sandy. I did have a great New Year's. Thank you. I'm having a great New Year this far. I appreciate the good wishes. Kenyan, I agree with you. The Crocs would love this. But now the thing is, I just wonder where they are. I would love to see one. I haven't seen them in a while. They are some of my favorite. And And certainly with all this water they would love. The only question is whether they stuck around or whether they might have moved. Now, after the rain, of course, they would be more readily available somewhere else. So let's have a look. What is that? Looks like a yellow-billed duck swimming there. That's quite an interesting one. Black-winged stilt. And lots of birds around the edge here. Blacksmith lapwings, Egyptian geese. See that wildebeest is laying down and chewing the cud now. Very relaxed, doesn't seem bothered at all. He's got a good view, he knows the water's behind him, so nothing can approach from there. Or very unlikely rather, not nothing. Sandy Franklin, you are asking how the dam cams are controlled. That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure myself, but I do know that we have the camera operators that sit and they watch all the cameras that we have online at any given moment, seeing which ones have interesting sightings happening on them. And then, of course, they would decide which area and which reserve to head to. And those people, the camera operators, they are called zoomies. Very, very fitting name. And then they also control them from the office at FC, where they also constantly monitor them. They see if there's something good, they'll let me know, and then we usually head over there. But also, they try and find and spot things for us, zooming in. And these cameras can be controlled remotely, which is incredible. Incredible how the technology can share something so amazing with everybody, even though you might be hundreds of miles away from the area that the camera is at. But beautiful to see Tau. I'm so happy to see that there's so much water currently. So we're gonna head over to Stony Point and see if we've got another beautiful beach day there. Got some drowsy penguins, Egyptian geese. I've gotten so used to seeing Egyptian geese at every single little puddle and watering hole out in the bushveld that it's still quite funny to see them out here. the intertidal zone at Betty's Bay. Lovely to see the penguins. See those two there on the left hopping into the water. That's quite nice to see. See them bobbing around. They might just be going over, just heading over to the other bank, the other bridge. They can look quite comical when they move or waddle along the bank. They can move quite quickly. And they're surprisingly agile, even over the sharp rocks. It's interesting, as we can see, there's two of them. It's found a nice little spot there to rest. And we have a kelp gull. And there we have the kelp forests. All its rich food live in it. Very productive area this, and hence the colonies of birds that we find here. Different cormorants, penguin. See as the water's moving up and down, as the tides coming in and out, there's all those kelp forests just showing their little peaks above the water. But here we can see the cormorants. From what I understand, they are Cape cormorant. I believe I can see a little bit of yellow right underneath the base of the bottom part of the bill, approaching the neck, which is the distinguishing feature. Slightly larger and rarer bank cormorant. There's a few in the water, but not nearly as much as there were yesterday. Yesterday they gave us quite a show. Now they mostly look like they're sitting with their bills tucked in, taking a rest. Interesting to note that the rocks closest to the water with better access directly to diving spots is more white, so more regularly used from the birds' droppings. And what do we have here? Some rock hyraxes. They look a little bit cold, slow moving. Yes. What's that one? Seasoned traveler. Dark Main Lover, he's saying Stony Point and an Eddie's Bay and the water here. I agree, what a beautiful place. I love seeing that baby Dassie or Hyrax laying out there. I love seeing the different critters here. Some critters that I actually haven't seen in a while. I remember as a boy we used to travel to this part quite often for weekends away, and it was always fun to see all these little shoreline animals and birds. Joan Mello, you're saying you love it at Stony Point and that you can smell the salt water. I wish I could smell the salt water. That is, oh wow. It's quite a nice view of a Hyrax. Here comes another one. But I wouldn't mind being able to smell the salt water now. It's quite a refreshing, very invigorating smell. Certainly one of the things that I miss most about living by the coast. Running bear. You're saying it's a long time since you've seen the penguins and the sea. Even myself, in person, it's been quite a long time, so I'm really enjoying seeing it from the cameras here. I think it's quite a beautiful reminder of the beauty down the Western Cape and along our coastlines. And then leopard lover. Yes, indeed. You're asking if this is Yapi from Mbala. Yes, indeed. I used to be at Mbala. And I'm very happy to hear that you haven't forgotten my voice. I'm very happy that you can join us this afternoon. You can see how this Hyrax is using that rock. And this is a pillow. His feet's tucked in from the cold. And that fur completely insulating it. Interesting thing, I had a question the other day about whiskers, whether they have whiskers or not. And what I read about it is that they actually have whiskers throughout their body, to be honest, and spread out all over their body. And I know whiskers playing a role in helping animals navigate through certain tight spaces. I guess the fact that they live in amongst the rocks and the cracks, maybe that enables them their agility and helps them with their navigations. Dark Main Lover, you saying that dassies are too cute and that they remind you of big beavers. I have never seen a beaver in person, and they do look a little bit reminiscent of a beaver, except for the fact that the black tail that the beaver's got. And of course, they've got a different ancestry and lineage. But they do remind me of beavers, a little bit of a capybara as well. What do we have there? We've got some, looks like crested cormorant. The larger one with the obvious white breast on the right. And then, I'm not too sure, I can't see there, it looks like Cape Cormorants. the other three neatly lined up on what I'm assuming is some steps. A good spot to sit up and also to dive from. You can see from all the bird droppings on the ground, the white marks. This is also a regularly used spot. And it looks like there is a gull, probably a Hartlaub's gull, sitting in the foreground with his head tucked in neatly. And there we have a kelp gull, still sitting out on the coast, weathering the wind. Very beautiful bird this, quite a notorious bird, especially amongst toddlers and kids on the beach, especially toddlers and kids liking ice cream and slap chips. The gulls in some parts of South Africa are known to be quite aggressive, and occasionally they do try and take easy pickings. They usually pick on the little folk. It's good to see that there's none of that here. And just have a look, what a beautiful rugged coastline. A very, very productive part of the ocean. But what a beautiful afternoon it's been indeed. It was amazing to catch up with some of the areas that I haven't seen in a little while. And thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, joining all of us here at Wild Earth around the watering holes. And I really hope that you will join us again tomorrow. But for now, I'll say goodbye from myself and from everybody at Wild Earth.